I've been an artist all my adult life, and I've been teaching art history, architecture related courses for 30 years. And I don't do baskets. Seriously speaking, no baskets at home, in the studio. I've never used them in my teaching until recently. I was desperate for an idea, and you'll see why. And desperation is an excellent source of creative ideas. So that time it happened to be baskets. Does anyone remember what these are at all? About 2 people, yes. This is the old technology for images. The image is here on this film, physically speaking, and this slide goes onto that tray, and the tray goes onto a projector, and we get to see it in the classroom. This worked very well in the classroom until the digital age. But there was a major problem for students back then, which doesn't exist today. These images were not available to them outside of the classroom. I had the physical slides in my office, they didn't. There was no slide library for undergraduates. Most of these were not in the book, and remember, there is no Google yet. You can't look them up. So imagine you're sitting in the classroom and we are studying this building, the Beijing Stadium. You're going to see this image for the next 15 minutes or so as we talk about it, and then we move on to something else. You'll see hundreds of images during the semester, but 35 of these you are responsible for, which means you need to learn and remember what you learned, including all those annoying facts like names and dates and titles and so forth. Now, students have always struggled with this, have always complained about this, as we all would. But in the end, they maintained a decent level. Now, that level of memory, that average, kept pretty steady for the first 23 years of my teaching, since 1985, with no visible fluctuations up or down. And then came digital images, platforms like Moodle and Blackboard, and I was ecstatic. Now, I made all of these images available on the course website, and expecting that my students will do so much better at learning and remembering what they learned. But then came the surprise. Instead of improving, they have actually started doing worse in the memory part, only in that part. Now I have to explain a few things. All of this I'm sharing with you is based on student exam grades, just the memory part of the exams, and a few other assessments spread over 30 years, generations of students with no fluctuations until 8 years ago. And then a rather sudden drop in their memory skills, remembering what they've learned. And since then, we've been coasting at that lower level of performance. This is so counterintuitive. I had no idea where this came from, and the only thing I could find that had happened, which would be significant 8 years ago, was that I made these images available, instantly accessible on the course website. Now, once again, I have to acknowledge it would be silly to suggest only one reason for something like this. It's very complex. And to suggest that it's the direct cause of this. Yet, while everything else stayed pretty much the same, this one factor stood out: instant availability of all images and information. So the question was, is this having a negative impact on students' memory skills? If so, how? Speaking with students, it becomes very clear. After all, if you can access these images instantly, on your phone, on your smartphone, or your smartwatch, or your sandwich, is it even necessary to take notes and engage in the classroom, or remember anything if you can look it up? Now, my answer is a resounding yes. But students' answers seem to be no. They weren't sure, but their personalized note-taking, was fast disappearing. So in the old days, students panicked, actually. This was the only time they were going to see this. It is kind of hard to imagine this today. But they personalized their notes with all sorts of odd drawings and cartoons and, more idiosyncratic, the better, as a matter of fact. This is how we personalize things. This is how we personalize knowledge, right? Paraphrasing, not just literally, verbally, but also visually. So this helps with memory. Then, of course, I asked, what else can I do to make this more memorable? And that's when I let the baskets in, rather grudgingly. Now, let's imagine we're in the classroom and you are sitting in the students' seats. I have a very simple question for you. Is this art or craft? Now, these are baskets. We're going to look at a bunch of baskets and other things, and if you think any one of these looks like art to you, would you please raise your hand so we get a visual sense? Baskets are functional, utilitarian. They may be beautiful, we appreciate them certainly, but is it really art for you? No prior definitions or knowledge required, just your gut feeling. So let's start with this one. Are these artworks for you? Just a show of hands. 3 people. Thank you. Well, students would generally agree with you in the classroom. How about this one? Now, this is a Japanese piece. It's bamboo. It's in the tradition of flower arrangement art, which is ikebana. So this kind of basket weaving is tied to the art of cut flowers and so on. So we have more people thinking that this is art. A lot more people, actually. Certainly this one is a lot more involved. It's like nature itself. There are all these patterns and rhythms and so forth. But it still has a handle, and it would function as a basket. How about this one? How many of you would think this is art? Almost everybody. Just about everybody. And this is about the point where students in the classroom will think, almost 90%, that it's art. So discussion in the classroom takes off in all of these directions at once, hence it's pretty chaotic. So I just try to get it under control and have some sort of controlled chaos in the classroom. But this is where craft may turn into art. What's utilitarian and functional may turn into what is suggestive, and we keep going. Oh, and then how are these made? This is bamboo, so slicing bamboo into such fine strips and then binding them, twisting them, bending them with such precision and patience. The pure craft of it always amazes us and therefore is very memorable. Bamboo is a very hard material to work with. Is this art? How many of you would think? Just about everybody, almost everybody. Students would agree, because they would look at this and they would think this is abstract. I don't see a handle, I don't see a basket, there's no function for it, it seems to exist for aesthetic reasons. Without the title, and I keep that from students and from you right now, someone will soon suggest, well, maybe it's a basket with something growing in it. A basket and a flower in one. We say, good for you, and we keep moving. From woven baskets to woven sculptures, like that one, to a woven stadium. Is this art, in your opinion? Just about everybody. Students also think this is art, and then we take off in that direction in the classroom. But at this point, if they haven't done so already, I bring up the question, why? Why do we do this? Why do we spend so much of our time, effort, and at least in this case, money? Close to $500 million US for this stadium. Why? Not just what, where, how, as in how you weave a stadium of all things. This is an engineering marvel. It is so complex, they had to use an aerospace company's software for the structural modeling. Yet, those questions can be answered. By engineers, I wouldn't get it probably, but they can be answered. But why? Well, that's the deepest of mysteries, isn't it? It's sort of like standing atop the Grand Canyon and asking, why? Is this for me? Am I for it? You know, it's about existence. It's a philosophical question. It's a very deep question. The artist in me will suggest that these deeper mysteries remain in our deeper consciousness. Therefore, they're remembered in the longer term. Maybe they're always there. But the point is this. You know, having a philosophical conversation in the classroom with first-year students is hard because they think it is hard, that they're not sophisticated enough for this. Yet, there's nothing hard about baskets. So connecting even the deepest question to a most ordinary object seems to work. So that helps with memory. By the way, this stadium had a nickname, Bird's Nest, it was called. Now, why do we do that? Why do we give nicknames to things that already have names? Because it's easier to remember, obviously. Right? So, in the classroom, Beijing National Stadium is the title, that's what you're supposed to remember. But something about birds and nests is what you will remember a couple of months from now. Therefore, weaving what is new, different, odd, and what is familiar, ordinary, mundane, all together, and thus to different parts of the brain, where we have existing knowledge of these things, helps with memory. It's sort of like visual nicknames, if you will. Perhaps this is where we got the idea for weaving in the first place. So we come full circle with this thread, and we can continue to spiral or circle with many different artworks. Now, if we were to look at this piece at this point along this thread, rather than earlier as we did, still without the title, students are likely to suggest, well, maybe it's a woven nest and the outline of a bird, soaring or flight. What changed? It's the same piece. The only thing that changed is the connections we wove around it. Earlier we were talking about ikebana, flowers, baskets, so that came up. Now it's the birds and the nests, and that came up. Now, for the artist, obviously flight was on his mind, and that's the title. But ultimately, that doesn't matter. That's our personal experience with art. It changes from person to person and from moment to moment. What does matter here is that abstraction, as we see it up there, which always seems so difficult to students, suddenly speaks to them, and speaks to them easily. All because of these simple connections that we wove around it. And also it'll be more memorable for them in the future. Threads like this one will take about 45 minutes or so in the classroom, and of course they will include many more images and much more discussion and questioning than we have time for today. But I'm amazed every time we do this in the classroom, I end up with the full attention of all of them from beginning to end. They're engaged, talking, commenting, etc. Certainly that helps with memory, unbroken attention, but why? I mean, are baskets awesome with 20-year-olds all of a sudden? No. It's not the baskets. It's all that weaving that we do around these baskets. So connecting even the most fundamental, profound questions for which there may be no answers, that's as deep as it gets, to the most mundane of objects, like baskets, seems to help. So I guess we are weaving in the classroom, but this is no longer a basket case. Thank you.